Hi there, so my name is Nick Gregory. I'm currently Community Safety Officer covering the Craven and Harrogate areas, the North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service, and I'm also an on-call firefighter covering the Skipton area. So prior to joining the fire service, I hadn't been diagnosed formally with any neurodiverse condition. Around the age of 33, I did go to see my GP and was diagnosed as Asperger's autistic. I'd suspected I might be on the autistic spectrum for quite some time prior to that. I'd been exhibiting a number of signs and symptoms, and a few years prior to my diagnosis, I'd met someone who had been diagnosed at a younger age, spotted a lot of the signs and symptoms in me, and convinced me that it might be something I wanted to look into. As a result of not being diagnosed, it did make certain parts of my life quite a lot harder than I think they otherwise would have been. School in particular, when I was primary school, secondary school age, was a real struggle. I definitely struggled socially. I found it difficult to make friends. A lot of social norms didn't really make a lot of sense to me. I struggled with things that people take for granted, such as reading emotions, reading facial expressions. Really struggled with things like nuance and subtlety, and I could become across as quite a blunt person, spoke my mind. It made me quite difficult to get along with, which I recognise now. Going into university, I ended up dropping out from my degree as a result of struggling with depression, and eventually that's why I ended up moving back to Skipton. After my dad died, my mum was left on her own, and I wasn't really coping well either, so kind of moved back in for me to keep an eye on her and her to keep an eye on me. That's what brought me back to where I started, really, and took things from there. It did provide me with quite a lot of strengths as well, though. Academically, I did fairly well right throughout my school career. I had a fairly organised mind, good logical thinker. I was very good at problem solving, good at the sciences and maths, and that served me well going through school. I looked into joining the fire service after I'd been back in Skipton for years. I'd never thought about joining the fire service as a young person. I'd always assumed, and it's one of those myths I think the fire service is kind of keen to bust, that you needed to be kind of superhuman fit and kind of an exceptional individual to even stand a chance of getting in. It was my mum actually spotted the advert and says, "Why don't you give this a try?" Well, that kind of work would really suit me. And the more I looked at the requirements for it, the more I realised they were actually quite achievable for most people. You do need to attain a decent standard of fitness, but it's achievable if you're willing to put a little bit of effort in. I think for about a month and a half's work of starting to jog and hit the gym, I went from someone who didn't really do any kind of working out to someone who was more than fit enough to be inside the fire service. Going through the application process, felt really kind of welcomed by the crew on the station. They showed me around. They were really accommodating and welcoming and taught me through everything I could expect to do in the job. Gave me a really good idea of what I was getting myself in for, and it sounded like great work. So practical problem solving skills, working with the community, making a real positive difference to your local area, exciting varied response work. So it all sounded great. That's why I decided to commit to applying for it in the end. So I wasn't diagnosed as Asperger's autistic formally until I'd been in the fire service for a couple of years, which gave me a bit of a perspective of what it's like going through the recruitment process as someone who's considered neurotypical, and then working within the fire service, having a better understanding of the condition and what support's available. The recruitment process was very accommodating. I didn't ask for any kind of special treatment or any kind of outside help. I'd basically been trying to manage as best I could all of my life, so I'd already developed some coping mechanisms to help me get through the tougher parts of the recruitment process. I'd say I struggled most with basically being part of a new social group, quite a large group of trainees that I had to get to know and get on with. But everybody was really supportive. Everyone came in with the right attitude of trying to, be a team and help each other out. The instructors were really accommodating and really approachable. There was a lot of information to take in, but they helped you every step of the way. And if you felt that you were struggling, they'd give you one-to-one time, help you through any steps you needed to progress. And coming onto station, the crew were really accommodating as well. Even though I was very shy from the beginning, they were willing to give me time to kind of come out of my shell and learn to express myself a bit better. A few years into my career, I did go for formal diagnosis. It had just been at the back of my mind for years at that point that I needed to know one way or the other. So I had a meeting with the GP and we talked through the symptoms I was expressing, how it affected my life, and she came to the conclusion that, yeah, I probably was Asperger's autistic. It didn't really change much for me, but gave me a better perspective of who I was and how better I needed to manage my expression of autism. There have been times in my career when I felt my anxiety getting on top of me. It's only happened a couple of times as I've learned more and more how to manage my own condition, but no one's immune from slip-ups. And in those occasions, the managers on the station have been really understanding of what's been going on. They've not just seen someone losing their temper for no reason. They've understand there's something going on in the background here, something that's causing this. They have the training and the understanding of the condition to know enough to manage it right. So just taking me aside and saying, we understand what's going on, just step back, calm down, come back in when you're ready, and we'll progress from there when you're feeling more comfortable with approaching what we're dealing with. And not putting people in situations where they know are going to cause any kind of issues for them. So the managers have been extremely supportive, and I'm really glad we've got their help on station. So throughout my career, I've done a lot of things that I felt have been really worthwhile as part of the fire service. But one thing that always stuck out to me was when I was working on what we call our local intervention fire education courses, which are youth programs targeted at young people who are starting to display either signs of social anxiety or disruptive behaviour, or possibly fire setting. Kids who are just starting to take the wrong path in life, and we give them a chance to come and work in a structured environment, learn from the fire service ethic of working as a team, working just to improve the communities and be better people. There was one particular young man on a Harrogate course who was really struggling with anger management issues at the start of the week, and I got to mentor him. He was on the autistic spectrum and just really couldn't control his temper. He'd just try and take on too much at once, try and solve everyone's problems, and then just let everything, get on top of him and have a little bit of a meltdown. And over the course of the week, I just gave him support on how to break up the problems he was facing into smaller chunks so that he could just tackle one task at a time, think through everything in a logical order, and then not have to take on so many issues at once. And by the end of the week, we saw a marked difference in his behaviour. He was managing his temper much better. He was working around groups much better, and really had a more confident attitude about him. He wasn't really feeling overwhelmed by the experience, and he really fit in well with the rest of the crew. So I think being able to see that difference over the course of a week and just using my own experience to help him out really felt like I'd given something back. So I'm very proud of being able to do that. If you're considering a career with the fire service, I think the most important thing to bear in mind is not to worry that declaring your condition will be seen as a detriment to your application. It absolutely won't be. The service is committed to being accommodating of anyone with neurodiverse conditions where they can make reasonable adjustments. If you don't need any help, that's absolutely brilliant. But if you do need support, it's there for you. The service now has a much better understanding of what people need putting in place and are willing to make those adjustments for you. So you won't be held back if you declare that you are needing a little bit of extra help or even a neurodiverse condition. Second thing I'd say is you've absolutely made a brilliant choice wanting to be part of the fire service. It's a career that I have absolutely no regrets of going into. It's been fulfilling work throughout. I feel like I've been able to give something back to my community, as well as getting a lot of personal fulfillment out of it. The response work is always varied, and you feel like you're making a difference to people's lives when they're potentially having the worst day of their own lives. And the community work I've gotten involved with has been really fulfilling, and being able to help build resilience in communities and make people feel safer and more secure. Finally, I think it's worth noting that you really shouldn't worry too much about what kind of environment you'll be joining when you get on station with the fire service, or if you go into any of the other career opportunities that are out there. The fire service has a huge range of career options for people to help their communities out, whether it be support staff, control staff, everything from mechanics keeping the vehicles running to actually responding on fire appliances. So there's a huge range of things for you to potentially do, and every single one of those departments will be willing to support you and help you, mentor you throughout your whole career, give you any support you need, make you feel part of the team. So you're joining a really good, well, close-knit team that will give you the time and space you need to fit in, feel comfortable, come out of your shell on your own terms, if that's what you need, and really feel like this will be your second home